All right, we are now joined by Josh Epstein, pitching coach here at the University of Richmond. First and foremost, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Excited to be here. Beautiful campus. I want to first ask you a kind of an open-ended question here on philosophy, right? We're in a day and age where pitching development can go a million different ways. There's tons of tools and resources. So within the constructs of team philosophy, how do you then kind of incorporate within that individual philosophy?
We can't go a million different directions with this, right? I think, first of all, the relationship is really important in understanding who the pitcher is and where they've come from and some of their personal history that shaped them to this point, which sounds really cliche, but I think you can draw on some of their previous experiences, both on and off the field, to help their in-game play and also their development, right? So getting to know the person is really important, and then taking some time to identify what they are as a pitcher is important. I've definitely been guilty of tinkering too much too early, not really letting the freshman or transfer that comes in express themselves and show us what they are over the course of a representative sample size. So we're in this period now, we're about literally like 6 weeks to the day into the semester. We have a lot of new guys. And right about now is when I'm figuring out exactly what they are to put together, hopefully, the best plan to develop them as best they can be.
Walk me through a little bit of the process of when you get them in, starting to get that data collection. You know, you mentioned 6 weeks is when you can start to kind of figure out who they are. And then are you placing them kind of into buckets and into these are maybe my velo guys, these are my, mixed guys, good slider guys? Are you doing it from a mechanic standpoint? When you look at then having to develop them individually, are you grouping them together a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I think physicality is a thing that's big time. We have a great strength coach here, and the weight room is amazing. And so just the guys who are tall, skinny, and need to gain some weight, we'll put those guys on one side, maybe. And an example just being another group as physical dudes who maybe need to get a little more mobile or explosive or something like that. So I think we'll go there before we go actual mechanics, because as their bodies change in the weight room, their mechanics are going to change out here. So we'll do more of that. The tall, skinny pitcher that throws really hard is pretty scary, so we're lucky to have a bunch of Flex Pro grips that will get those guys on immediately. We have subscriptions to Armored Heat and armcare.com, and so we really want to assess them from a physical standpoint that way and get them ingrained in those routines and those apps. So the first few weeks are there, and then I would say as much velo as it is metrics, who are sinker guys, who are carry guys, who are guys that can come in and throw 60% strikes with a slider, who are tough matchups from lefty-righty platoon, reverse platoons. We have a sophomore this year who's righty pitcher, didn't throw particularly hard, wildly effective against lefties last year. So, we're really letting that play out. Coach Aoki, really, we're on the same page as far as just playing a lot and just what are we on a day-to-day basis and creating that sample size.
A lot of different ways I want to go with that, but first let me ask you, as far as then, you're talking about, hey, this is a good reverse split guy, this is a good left on left, right on right, whatever it may be, sinker, carry. I would imagine that it's only going to work if those guys believe in that bucket you're putting them in. How do you go about then creating the buy-in within the staff so those guys kind of understand how you see them and get them on the same page with that?
Yeah, I think it's showing them what is making them successful. We had a kid a couple years ago, a grad transfer. His name was Kyle Roach. He was like 6'8", righty, threw kind of cross body, low slot. So he was like outlier metric guy, and he threw a ton of strikes, like just strike throw to the max. And he was first base side of the rubber as a righty pitcher, and the ball would come straight down the middle, and it had some sink to it. His slider was average at best. 3 weeks into the fall, the exit velos against were in the 90s, and he was because he threw a ton of strikes, he got obliterated. And so we just said, hey, let's move to the third base side of the rubber. And all of a sudden he's coming from 4 feet behind the hitter and everything, and then instantaneously the exit velos against went into the 60s. And it doesn't happen like that all the time where the success happens immediately. But I think there's enough out there for, for whatever it's worth, a guy comes to your school and he believes they're predisposed to believing in your development and your judgment and opinions and everything. So yeah, it's not, as long as there's some proof behind it, it's not particularly difficult. I don't think, anyways. And there's always some guys that are like very challenging, and that's what you get at Richmond, man. You get some super high analytical dudes that are really thoughtful about their process and maybe over analytical, but with these guys, you really have to have a reason for what you're doing, and I welcome that because it makes me better, right?
What, in your opinion, movement, when I say the term movement, and efficient movers and how guys move, why is that important, and how do you go about assessing that and then putting into a plan of action to maybe create the most efficient movers you possibly can?
I think efficient movers, that goes into athleticism, right, which is like kind of catch-all, but when you get down to it, guys who move efficiently or are quote-unquote athletic are going to not stress their arm as much, right? Their body is going to dissipate the force a little bit better. It's going to be a little cleaner arm action. It's one of the reasons why the shortstop always has the best arm, and he just moves really well. And so we'll do that with guys a lot. I'm not constantly, I want to be doing it a little bit more, but like having them turn double plays all the time and kind of like un-POing them and just getting them moving a little bit more. And I think that has, along with just moving better, I think it helps them with target practice and throwing the ball where they want to throw it and helping them not be so mechanically oriented. And so I think, we do so much work off of the mounds that we're standing on right now, but half of our conference games are not going to be anywhere close to here, and we're going to be in weather and dirt mounds and whatever. So I think the adjustability piece is really important, and guys that move more efficiently are more adjustable over the long term.
And then I love how you talk about un-POing them and kind of creating them more athletically. One of the things that I find fascinating for pitching coaches, and one of the unique challenges that you guys face, is a hitting coach, we can go in there and if we wanted to, we could take 300 swings. You only have so many bullets out here on the mound in a day for your arm if we're keeping them safe and keep thinking about arm health. I always find it fascinating, how do you kind of go about figuring out what's most important that day and keeping those guys on that path? Because you mentioned it, we can get really analytical and really mechanical and tinker too much to a point where we're kind of damaging the work we've put in. How do you go about making that decision on, hey, this is what's important today?
Oh, that's a really good question. Our overarching theme is playing our best baseball at the end of the year, right? Pitching our best baseball in May and June. And so that's kind of like our North Star guiding light, what's going to help us do that. And again, like that 6-week period, and then the next 6 weeks, like what are the goals of this period to help us be really good at the end of the year? And to be really good at baseball, you have to play baseball a lot, right? It's one of the reasons why older hitters are really good, because they have more at-bats under their belt and so on. So I want guys touching the mound a lot. I want guys throwing off the mound a lot, but we also do a lot of visualization down the mound. I think that's really important almost every day, from a what do you want to happen this weekend standpoint, or what do you want the shape of this pitch to look like? What are you going to do against lefty or righty? What are you going to do when the umpire doesn't give you the corner? What are you going to do when somebody boots a ball behind you? How are you going to react? What is your body language, and so on? And so there are a number of studies with dart throwers and free throw shooters and weightlifters where if you act out the motion, right, along with the visualization piece, you'll get a certain percentage, whether it's 60 or 66% of the way, as if you were actually practicing. So on lighter throw days, on days where we might be working more on the recovery piece or the mobility piece or what have you, we'll still get up here and we'll go downhill and just put ourselves in that arena, so to speak. So again, that's helping us get better, or helping us reach that better at the end of the year type of thing.